Should children be spanked?
Yes, but in moderation. I mean, it's still spanking works, but it takes more creativity to have other ways of disciplining them. I mean, it's easier just to whack them one.
So now we've got an edging and a lip to the flower arrangement. Now we get to start with the fun part.
You can make soup from any chicken in the coop, but you cannot make a chicken from soup.
Well, hi and welcome to ID 21.
Welcome.
What do you know about raising kids?
Very little.
Very little.
But one of our guests on the show knows a lot. His name is Dr. Frank Scott, and he has some tips for raising healthy, happy families.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're going to throw a lot of different questions at him.
Yes, we will.
And we're going to have a lady on the show. I'm going to have her a little bit later on to show us how to arrange flowers.
Flowers.
Rita Maggert.
Okay. And a bit later on, Alan Root will be here. He produces some children's videos, so you won't want to miss that.
You can't make a chicken from soup.
That's what it's called. And riding backwards in the back.
Yeah, we'll find out more about that
Yeah.
later on.
So stay with us.
Yeah,
We'll be right back.
When it gets tough, parents have now they have more of a chance to get out of the marriage, and that just seems to be happening more and more.
Welcome to our Life Matters segment on ID 21. We have with us Dr. Frank Scott, who's a counseling psychologist. Actually, this could be called the Family Matters segment. But we're going to talk about raising kids and healthy tips, or tips for having healthy families, or something like that, aren't we? What are some tips? What's the number one problem facing families today?
Well, it'd have to be disintegration of the family, but the main problem, though, is just what is causing that, and I would have to say just a lack of commitment when it comes to mom and dad staying together. I mean, when it gets tough, parents have now they have more of a chance to get out of the marriage, and that just seems to be happening more and more.
What's the percentage of families, the nuclear family of mom, dad, and the kids staying together now?
Well, it's decreasing. I mean, it's still about half of the families out here in America right now, they're not in the same family as with what the child started in. I mean, there's more and more step parents. It's now 30 to 40% too of our families are single, so that percentage just keeps going up and up.
What do you hear when you get in a family setting with these mixed families now? What do you hear that is so different from the problems that they had as a family, a regular family unit?
Well, even though they can be great people trying to blend a family, it's still going to be very difficult. I mean, it's just not like the Brady Bunch. I wish it were, but it's not. And it's just trying to bring two diverse backgrounds and experiences and make them into one happy family, and it just doesn't happen very easily.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a gamut of things here about raising kids. Children who experience a range of emotions, sadness, guilt, depression. How should parents deal with these different types of emotions? Is there one certain way, or it depends on the emotion, or?
Well, it depends upon the emotion, but mainly it's letting them express whatever it is they feel. I mean, parents do the child an injustice when they try to cut off the feeling, if it's anger or if it's sadness, whatever it is. And it makes it tougher to parents to do that because they don't want to deal with an acting out angry child. But unless you let the child do that, it just kind of all goes underground and makes it even harder to deal with in the long run.
So if the child is unhappy and not smiling, the parent should not say, wipe that frown off your face. Look happy. Is that the wrong thing?
That's definitely the wrong thing.
Okay.
Mainly it's trying to set an environment. You can't force them to share anything with you, of course. I mean, that just even makes it worse. But you set an environment so you try to solicit how they feel in kind of a kind way.
Do you think the effects of the media, we hear all the time, the television and movies affect children and make them maybe a little more violent or a little more stressed or whatever. Do you think children's emotions are different than they were maybe a generation ago?
I don't think their emotions are different. I just think they're being bombarded in so many different directions. I mean, we all know that, just how much stimuli is coming their direction that kids a generation and 2 generations ago didn't have to deal with. So we have kids who are really too sophisticated and don't know how to handle all that's coming in their way. And it's up to us, I think, as parents to try to de-stress that situation from them, do a little bit better job of protecting them from what they're receiving.
I grew up under Dr. Spock and his philosophy. Tell us about what his philosophy was and how has that changed today?
Okay. Permissiveness, and that was a generation of the 50s and 60s, but really the experts have found that that didn't work as well as what he thought it was going to work, and so it's kind of, the pendulum swings back, and now it's more in the direction of consequences, suffering as a result of your actions, so it's moving back in that direction.
Should
again.
children be spanked?
Yes, but in moderation. I mean, it's still, spanking works, but it takes more creativity to have other ways of disciplining them. Anyway, it's easier just to whack them one.
Well, that's a good thing to get into then. What are some of the techniques for discipline?
What's the best way to whack someone?
That's what he wants to know.
It takes more thought into how to discipline now. And a timeout is just a real good technique. It's pulling them away from anything that is rewarding them at the time and putting them in the corner is what it comes down to. But it doesn't have to be for a lengthy period of time, just long enough to make the point that they're being disciplined.
Do you think children are getting to be more sophisticated as far as manipulating their parents?
They're very sensitive. They know how to read their parents very well. And they know what their parents want them to do and not want to do, so they can read them well, and subsequently they can manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think maybe some of the films and some of the television shows that they see do give them a little more insight into the way parents interact.
Well, that's the plot of so many of the situation comedies. It's learning to manipulate parents. And so they do pick that up.
Okay.
Let's take a break now, and we have with us Dr. Frank Scott, I almost said clinical, not clinical, counseling psychologist. Tell us the difference there since I made that movement. What is the difference?
Well, counseling psychologists just deal with the realm of just normal, healthy people with problems. Clinical psychologists focus more on abnormal behavior.
Okay,
That's
we
more
have-
in
we
your
have a
area,
counseling-
I
Thank you very
think.
much. We have a counseling psychologist with us, and when we come back, he's going to give us 10 tips for raising healthy, happy families right after this. Okay, how about those 10 tips for raising healthy families?
All of these are just so basic. I mean, it's almost like anybody could do them. They're just basic building blocks. So this is what research says will help you raise a happy child. Show them a lot of appreciation.
Appreciation.
Don't take them for granted, like we have a tendency to. I mean, a lot of saying thank yous for what they're doing. Obviously, spending a lot of time with our children and not replacing giving them gifts, but actually giving them ourselves and our time. Strong commitment to the family unit, to personal growth of the family members, but to the unit as a whole, and really building, like in my family, the Scott family, not just our little individual family members. A lot of just paying attention to body language of our children, trying to solicit their feelings by listening
Good common
to them.
sense there, in other words.
Yeah, all these common sense. But one thing important too is a spiritual orientation. The research says families that have a spiritual, greater than themselves type of outlook are going to be happier and healthier in the long run. So I'd like to hear that. Families that pull together during a crisis obviously are going to be healthier. And one interesting thing, healthy families have just as many crises. They just deal with them in a better way. Encouraging the sharing of feelings among the family members.
Is that done much? Do we tend to hide things and keep things within ourselves? I do.
Well, I think most
I'm
of us
confessing,
do.
I'm sorry.
And I think most of us have a problem. If somebody in our family is saying something that we don't like, we become angry and we try to shut them down by over-talking them, changing the subject. But if we're going to do it in the correct manner, we're trying to get them to share everything that they feel.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all
Where are we
right.
at?
That's good. Clear leadership of parents. Even secular research shows that somebody has to be in charge, and parents are it. They have the ultimate vote. Giving children the responsibility more and more as they grow up. It's like, you're opening your hand and letting them grow and go as they get older. I think sometimes, like I have a teenage son, sometimes we kind of crack down harder like this, when in fact we should be opening up and giving them more freedom. And then last, maybe even more powerful than all of this, is just the unconditional love, accepting them just like they are.
No matter if they look like me or...
No matter, even that
Even
extreme.
you.
It's just, and I think this is real hard for parents, just to accept them, flaws and all, whatever it is. But that has to be foundational to a young life.
Appreciate you being with us, Dr. Frank Scott.
Yes, thank you.
Good advice and good tips.
Yeah.
Next up, Susan Meredith and flower arranging. We'll be right back.
Happened to find these wonderful Nandina red berries that were right now, they're just so pretty. So I'm going to pull those in and put them on the other side to sort of balance the colors there.
Rita Maggert is the owner of her own business, and it's called Something Beautiful by Rita.
Hello,
How are
Susan.
you?
I'm doing great,
This
thanks.
is fun. We've done this several times.
Yes, we like arranging flowers, don't we?
Well, you like arranging flowers. I'm not very good at it, but you're going to show us something in roses here today. I love roses.
Thanks. They're lots of fun to
Yes.
work with.
Are they seasonal, or can you get them all year round?
Roses can be obtained all year round. They're grown in South America mostly, and also in some very hot places in the United States. So we can get them all year round, really. This is going to be a way for us to share ourselves and to give the flowers back to God and to share them with other people too.
Now, where do we begin?
We're going to begin by taking just a potted plant, and I'm going to show you how to put a potted plant in with some fresh cut flowers and really make what is going to look like a very large arrangement, but by filling some of the space with something already planted. And this gives us something that we can enjoy longer than the fresh cut flowers. Of course, this will last, and we can keep watering it and enjoying it for weeks to come. So, I've put a little dish in here, Susan, so that as you water it, of course, the box will be protected by that little dish there. So that's going to be in one side of the dish. And when you're arranging flowers, you need to think about something as line material and something that gives you height. So this potted plant provides that height on one side for us. Okay, and the next step, I found a little plastic liner that fits just perfectly in the other side of this box. So actually that's going to go in the other side, but before I do that, I've got to cut some of this floral foam. And you can get this, well, yeah, maybe you can. Let's see, it's real easy to do actually, so I'm just going to miter the corners a little bit. Now this is already wet, and I've made it so that all I have to do is put it right inside the plastic liner and tape it in.
Just like we do with the florist.
Yes.
Now, you are not a florist, is that right?
I am a floral designer. I do mostly things for people when they're having a party or they're doing something special in their homes. I go in and help them design things for homes, and I also do a lot of teaching and demonstrating. So it's a fun way for me to share God's beauty with these wonderful flowers.
All right. Now,
So
what do we
now,
do with
the
it?
next step is just simply to put the floral foam. Now, this is our water source for our cut flowers, and this needs to be watered. Right now, it's good and wet, but each day, you need to check it and see if it needs to be watered again, because that's going to keep your flowers nice and fresh. And Susan, one of the most fun things to do when you're arranging flowers is to see if there's anything available just out in the yard or possibly in the garden to use what you have access to in the season that you have it. And I happened to find these wonderful Nandina red berries that were right now, they're just so pretty. So I'm going to pull those in and put them on the other side to sort of balance the colors there.
Now, that's beautiful. I would not have thought. Now, this is a seasonal plant here, and this one is a different season, actually.
Well, I think the colors work so nicely together that it really, it just kind of makes it fun to enjoy. Berries are usually thought of as coming into bloom in the fall, so we usually have a lot of wonderful berries to work with then. But if you look, you can find berries almost all year round. But these are little galax leaves, and they're going to be what I call the base of this arrangement. And when you use leaves right at the edge or the lip of your container, that's called covering your mechanics. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that none of the plastic or the foam or your tape is going to be seen. So you
For
use...
me, I do the cover-up afterward.
Right.
Cover my mistakes.
This is kind of this is kind of covering up the mechanics. So now we've got an edging and a lip to the flower arrangement. Now we get to start with the fun part.
Okay.
These beautiful roses. And we're basically just filling in. And another thing about roses, when you cut them very short like this, Susan, every time you cut a flower very, very short, it's going to last longer because it doesn't take as long for the water to get to the head. So these roses cut very low are going to last for much longer than if they were left on a long stem.
Well, I'll remember that. If anybody ever gives me long stem roses, I'll figure they'll be dead in the morning.
You don't need to feel bad about cutting them short because that really gives them an extra life. I brought another little flower today that's called
That's kind of pretty.
Yeah, isn't this pretty? This is a wax flower, and this is called a filler. When we have small flowers that make a transition from your line material and your dominant flower, it's called a filler flower. And smell this. It's like soap. It's kind of nice and clean.
How full would you make this? We probably don't have
I
time
think it's
to
full
fill the
enough,
whole thing.
don't you think?
You think that's
Mhm.
enough?
I do. I think we've got a beautiful line material here in this deep red, and it flows right over into the berries that just kind of spills out and gives you a lot of movement and motion on the other side.
All right, now what would we use this for?
I would give that as a gift. I'd say, you know, I've got a special grandmother or a next door neighbor or just if your child has a teacher or someone they'd really like to say something nice to, a gift of flowers is always a perfect gift.
All right, well, I think that is definitely something beautiful.
Thank you so
by
much.
Rita, and we'll be right back.
Old Uncle Fred and Larry next door, they think that they were monkeys long ago. Well, not monkeys, but apes, for the difference it makes when you're preaching and teaching what you really don't know.
Welcome back to the That's Entertainment segment on ID 21. We have with us Alan Root. I don't know much about Alan Root, but welcome to ID 21.
Thanks, Lee.
But it says in your bio here that you have an expressive Play-Doh face, that you're losing hair,
Yes.
and look more like the part of a dad and soon to be looking like the part of granddad.
I've got to fire my press agent.
Yeah.
That's me, though. So.
Who is Alan Root and what does he do?
Alan Root is is a crazy kind of guy. He is very different from what the normal kids person is.
Yeah.
It's because I didn't set out to be a kids person. I just set out to be me, and everybody kept telling me that's what you are. So instead of modeling myself after somebody that's already there, if anybody, I model myself after James Taylor and that kind of music.
Now I know a little bit about you. You produce
Yeah.
kids' videos.
Well,
Kind of a biblical message throughout, is that right?
yeah, I did this one video with the 10 songs on the first album that was called Backwards in the Back. And we had fun shooting. We went all over the place in Nashville and just shot fun, crazy stuff. And then, as you well know, edited in the studio. That's where the magic really happens.
Now how's that being received by people?
Very well.
Religious
Especially, well, this one, every time I see a small kid parked in front of a TV in front of this, there's drool hanging, starting to come out of their mouth. I can't ever get their attention when it's on.
Yeah.
So I think it's going well.
We're going to show some clips later on of a couple of your videos. One is about chicken soup, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
Tell me about that.
Chicken Soup it started out as a jingle for garage door openers. And when it didn't sell for garage door openers, I thought this will make a great kids song because it's so wacky. And I'm a large proponent of people knowing that they were created. And so I thought, how do I tell a kid, watch out, that some people are going to come along and tell you it's stupid to think that you're created. Nobody but an idiot would think they were created. How do I warn them about that?
How do you do that?
And so I warned them in this video by telling them that what they're about to hear is a story that goes like this, that billions and zillions and gazillions of years ago,
Long time.
there were proteins and amino acids floating about in a primeval sort of soup. And from that soup, as the lightning flashed and the thunder rolled, from that soup, over gazillions of years, it became us. And so...
Fat chance.
Right. Well, but it's a great story. And I wanted to prepare kids for that, so I said, you can make soup from any chicken in the coop, but you can't make a chicken from soup.
All right. How about dinosaurs? What's it about?
Dinosaurs is a crazy thing. My dear friend Ralph Henley one day said, do you know where dinosaurs are in the Bible? And I said, no way, there can't be dinosaurs in the Bible. And he said, yeah, go to Job, and you'll see Behemoth and Leviathan. And I read about them. I read that Behemoth was this giant monster with a tail like a tree and bones made of bronze. And down below it said, this is probably a hippopotamus. Now, when have you ever seen a hippopotamus with a tail like a tree? I mean, they have itty-bitty tails. I didn't know how they could get that. And then it said that Leviathan is this monster with armor that nothing can penetrate, and his breath sets the forests on fire. And I mean, I've known people like that, but they can get help. But this particular monster, the footnote said, this is probably a crocodile. And I thought,
way.
No. These are at least incredible creatures that could be dinosaurs. Yeah.
Now, you do other things as well.
Yeah,
Involved with Sandy Petty and other big shots. What do you do for that?
Well, I got on a synclavier one time and scored the music behind Sandy Petty reading the International Children's Bible.
Okay.
The way I spend most of my time is traveling around, spending weekends with churches, and having fun with their kids, doing concerts for them, and then talking to the churches to say, kids are great. They're not the church of the future. They're the church of today. Include them in everything.
Now, you work alone.
Yes.
And you
Just me and the angels.
come up with all this stuff just by yourself. Things are rattling around in your head, and put it down on paper, then into video.
Yep.
Something like that.
I work with people. Karen Henley and I have written some stuff together. Paula Flott and Dan Keene and I have written 3 musicals for kids, short stops in archaeology and hymnology. Writing with people is really stretching, but most of the time I write by myself.
Okay, we're going to look at some of your material. Just a
Great.
minute here. Appreciate you being with us.
Thanks, Larry.
Mr. Alan Root.
'Cause you can't make a chicken from soup. Those scientists tell us that it must be true. You can make soup from any chicken in the coop, but you cannot make a chicken from. No, you can't make a chicken from. You can't make a chicken from soup. The Bible tells of a creature with most unusual features. Tail like a tree, bones are like bronze, legs are like iron. Must I go on?
It's good to see producers using video in a positive teaching way.
It really is.
Yeah, what'd you think of that video? You can't make chicken from soup.
I can't even make a soup from chicken.
You're right.
I can't. You know, I really like Alan Root, though. He does such wonderful things for children, and he has this thing that he does called backwards in the back. Have you ever ride backwards in the back
Of a pickup truck?
of anything?
No, but we're going to close with that. So
I
here's a
think we
clip
are.
from it, Backwards in the Back,
All
with
right.
Mr. Alan Root. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
So long.
Okay.
I love the wind and I love the sky, and I love to watch the world roll by. And I like riding backwards in the back